In a peaceful suburban neighborhood, life usually moved slowly and quietly. Streets were lined with trees, lawns were carefully trimmed, and neighbors often waved hello to one another as they went about their day. People felt safe, and most days passed without incident. But one ordinary morning, something happened that would shake the community and quickly become the talk of the town. It all began when a white neighbor, who had lived in the area for many years, noticed some activity that caught their attention. From a distance, it seemed unusual, but at first, they weren't entirely sure what to make of it. The neighbor watched as two young black twins played outside, laughing and moving quickly from one corner of the yard to another. It was a sunny day, birds were singing, and everything looked normal to most eyes. Yet for this neighbor, something felt different, something that prompted concern. Without thinking too deeply about it, the neighbor made a decision to contact the local authorities. Hoping to be helpful and cautious, they dialed the emergency number, explaining that there might be a situation that needed attention. The report was simple, almost routine, or so it seemed. The neighbor didn't know the twins personally, hadn't spoken to them before, and had no idea about their family background. All they saw were two children playing, yet something in their mind suggested caution. What the neighbor didn't realize was that these twins were not ordinary kids in the eyes of the community, and certainly not to their family. Their mother held a position of significant power, running the entire county with authority, influence, and respect. She was well known among local leaders, business owners, and government officials. Her reputation was impeccable, and she was deeply admired for her work and dedication. Yet in this moment, none of this mattered to the neighbor, who only saw what they perceived on the surface. The twins, completely unaware of the concern, continued their day with innocence and laughter. They didn't understand why anyone might think there was a problem. Their world was simple, full of play, school, and family. They had no clue that a single phone call would set off a chain of events that could potentially involve law enforcement, neighbors, and even the media. All of this started with an innocent misunderstanding. A moment of caution that quickly escalated beyond what anyone could have predicted. As the call went through to the authorities, the neighbor felt a sense of responsibility. Believing they were doing the right thing, they didn't mean harm, and in their mind, they were acting in the best interest of the community. The idea that their action could create chaos or embarrassment for the twins and their family didn't cross their mind. This simple, well-intentioned decision would soon become the focal point of a story that captured attention far beyond the quiet streets of this suburban neighborhood. Meanwhile, other neighbors began noticing unusual activity as law enforcement responded to the report. Cars pulled up, officers stepped out, and the atmosphere in the neighborhood shifted from calm to tense. People peeked through windows, whispered to one another, and speculated about what was happening. In just a short time, curiosity began to spread, turning an ordinary morning into a situation filled with suspense, confusion, and a hint of drama. The sense of intrigue and anticipation grew, leaving everyone wondering what exactly had triggered such a reaction. Little did anyone know, the story was about to take a turn that no one could have expected. The twins' mother, with her influential position, would soon enter the scene, bringing authority, wisdom, and a surprising twist to the events that had begun with a simple phone call. What started as a cautious action by a concerned neighbor was about to transform into a remarkable tale of misunderstanding, power, and community reaction, setting the stage for a story that would be talked about for weeks, and eventually, go viral. This morning, which had started like any other, became unforgettable, reminding everyone that even in the quietest neighborhoods, life can change in an instant. One small action, a single choice, had the potential to ripple far beyond anyone's imagination. The story of these twins, their powerful mother, and the concerned neighbor was just beginning, and it would soon reveal lessons about assumptions, awareness, and the unexpected ways in which people's lives intersect. The moment the neighbor made the call, the quiet neighborhood began to shift. What seemed like a normal day was quickly turning into something far more serious than anyone had imagined. The black twins, unaware of the concern they had caused, were still outside, laughing and playing as if nothing had changed. They ran around the yard, chasing each other, kicking a ball, and enjoying the warmth of the sun, completely innocent. They had no idea that someone had perceived them as a potential problem. Within minutes, the sound of sirens broke the usual calm of the neighborhood. Patrol cars slowly made their way down the streets, drawing the attention of neighbors who had been watching from windows and porches. Officers stepped out, talking quietly into their radios, their eyes scanning the surroundings. The scene felt tense and surreal, as if a simple neighborhood afternoon had turned into a serious law enforcement operation. All because of one phone call and one neighbor's perception. The twins froze for a moment when they saw the police cars. Their laughter faded, replaced by confusion and curiosity. "Why are the cops here?" one of them whispered to the other. They exchanged puzzled glances, unable to understand what they could have possibly done wrong. They had played in yards like this countless times before, and yet today, everything felt different, like a story had begun to unfold that they were only now stepping into. The neighbor, standing at a safe distance, felt a mixture of satisfaction and nervousness. They believed they had done the right thing, yet seeing the police arrive made their heart race. The situation was bigger than expected, and a small part of them wondered if maybe they had overreacted, but it was too late for second thoughts. The wheels of the system were already in motion, and the scene was now a mix of confusion, concern, and curiosity. The officers approached the twins cautiously, trying to assess the situation. They asked simple questions, wanting to understand what was happening. The twins answered honestly, explaining that they were just playing outside, going about their usual routine. Every word they spoke seemed calm and innocent, yet the tension in the air remained palpable. It was clear to anyone observing that a misunderstanding had escalated into an unnecessary scene, one that could have been avoided with a little communication. Meanwhile, whispers spread among other neighbors. Everyone had a theory, and speculation ran wild. Some assumed the worst, while others tried to calm their curiosity. Phones came out, and a few quick videos were secretly recorded, capturing the twins standing nervously as the officers questioned them. The situation that began as a simple concern about unusual activity had now turned into a small spectacle, drawing attention from the entire block. The neighborhood was buzzing with questions and confusion. Unbeknownst to the neighbor or the twins, the story was about to become even more complicated. The mother of the twins, a powerful and highly respected official running the county, had been alerted to the situation. Her influence and authority would soon bring the entire incident under a new light. What seemed like a normal police call was about to take an unexpected twist, revealing that assumptions and lack of information can escalate even the simplest of events. As the officers continued to speak with the twins, they noticed how composed the children were. Despite their initial confusion, the twins were polite, articulate, and calm. It was clear they had been raised with a strong sense of respect and confidence, traits that would soon contrast sharply with the neighbor's misunderstanding and highlight the innocence of the children in the middle of the situation. The tension in the air was thick, yet the innocence of the twins made it impossible for anyone to perceive them as a real threat. By now, the neighborhood had gathered a small crowd, all eager to see what would happen next. The incident had transformed from a quiet, private matter into a public event, with curiosity, judgment, and speculation filling the streets. And while the neighbor had intended to act cautiously and responsibly, they could not have anticipated how much attention their decision would attract. The incident was no longer just about a phone call. It had become a lesson in assumptions, perceptions, and the unexpected consequences of everyday actions. Little did everyone know, this was only the beginning. The mother's arrival and the revelation of her position would soon shift the entire scenario, turning what seemed like a minor neighborhood misunderstanding into a story that would spread far beyond the streets of this quiet community. One single action had set off a chain of events that would challenge perceptions, authority, and the way neighbors viewed each other. As news of the incident spread, the neighborhood that had once been calm and quiet became a buzzing hive of curiosity and speculation. Neighbors began stepping out of their homes, glancing toward the twins' yard, whispering to each other, and trying to make sense of what had happened. Some were concerned, wondering if there had truly been a problem, while others were more intrigued, eager to learn the details of the situation that had suddenly transformed a regular morning into something extraordinary. Social media played a huge role in spreading the story even further. A few neighbors had already posted short clips of the scene, capturing the twins standing outside as officers questioned them. The posts quickly went viral within the local online community, drawing thousands of views, likes, and comments. People debated what had happened, some defending the neighbor for calling the police, while others criticized the assumptions that had led to such a response. The story became a reflection of the community itself, revealing fears, judgments, and misunderstandings that had always been quietly present. The black twins, completely unaware of the attention they were receiving, remained calm. Their innocence and natural curiosity were in stark contrast to the tension that had built up around them. They continued to look at the arriving neighbors and officers with wide eyes, silently asking each other what could possibly be happening. Their confusion mirrored the reactions of the wider community, who were trying to process the unexpected turn of events. Meanwhile, the neighbor who had called the authorities found themselves at the center of both support and criticism. Some neighbors praised them for being cautious and responsible, believing they had acted in the best interest of safety. Others quietly questioned whether the call had been necessary, suggesting that assumptions about the twins' behavior had created an unnecessary scene. The atmosphere was a mix of curiosity, tension, and quiet judgment, and the story had become a talking point. In every home, on every porch, and in every small gathering. Local news reporters soon caught wind of the story, and their presence added another layer of attention and drama. Cameras rolled, microphones were held out, and the quiet neighborhood street suddenly felt like the scene of a breaking news story. Journalists interviewed neighbors, asking for their opinions and reactions, capturing the diversity of perspectives. Some neighbors spoke with empathy for the twins, expressing regret that assumptions had escalated so quickly. Others shared their fear of unusual activity, believing they had done what anyone would do. The mix of reactions painted a vivid picture of the neighborhood's collective consciousness. Community leaders also weighed in, stressing the importance of understanding, communication, and avoiding assumptions. Meetings were called, and conversations began about how neighborhoods should respond to unusual situations. How to balance caution with fairness became a hot topic, and the incident prompted deeper discussions about race, perception, and authority within the community. People realized that what might seem like a small, everyday action could have far-reaching consequences. Through all the attention, the twins' mother remained calm and observant, watching from a distance as her children became the center of an escalating situation. She understood both the innocence of her children and the potential impact of public attention. Her presence, though initially unknown to the neighbors, would soon shift the entire narrative, adding a layer of authority, insight, and respect to the unfolding events. By the end of the day, the neighborhood had changed in subtle but lasting ways. Conversations had shifted from idle small talk to serious discussions about assumptions, responsibility, and the effects of actions taken in moments of uncertainty. The story of the white neighbor calling the police on the black twins had become more than just a local incident. It was a lesson in community dynamics, perception, and the power of curiosity and misunderstanding. Even as the sun set and the streets returned to their usual calm, the buzz of the day lingered in the minds of everyone involved. No one would forget how quickly an ordinary morning could turn into a moment of drama and reflection. The twins, the neighbor, and the observing community had all been drawn into a story that would be told and retold, each retelling carrying lessons about empathy, awareness, and the sometimes surprising consequences of everyday actions. While the neighborhood buzzed with speculation and curiosity, the focus was about to shift to the twins' mother, a woman whose reputation and influence ran far deeper than most people in the community could have imagined. She was a figure known for her intelligence, leadership, and dedication, running the entire county with a combination of authority and compassion. She had spent years navigating the complexities of local governance, earning respect from colleagues, citizens, and even critics. Yet her role was often quiet, professional, and behind the scenes, making her influence less visible to casual neighbors. Her life was a balancing act between public responsibility and private family moments. Few knew that she was not only a prominent official but also a devoted mother, deeply invested in raising her children with values of respect, courage, and awareness. The twins had grown up under her guidance, learning early on how to handle themselves with poise, even in unexpected or challenging situations. Their mother's calm and confident presence shaped much of who they were, instilling a sense of strength that now seemed so natural. The incident with the neighbor and the police call highlighted just how impactful her position could be. Though she had never sought attention for her family, the sudden involvement of law enforcement meant that her authority would soon intersect with her private life in a very public way. She was aware that, in moments like these, perception mattered as much as reality, and that a single action, such as a phone call from a neighbor, could trigger consequences she needed to manage carefully. Her career had been built on making decisions that balanced fairness, responsibility, and practicality. She understood the nuances of authority better than most, and she carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who knew how to navigate complicated situations. Her reputation for integrity and decisiveness made her well respected, but it also meant that the community often underestimated just how much influence she held. She had the ability to calm situations, clarify misunderstandings, and ensure that the truth always emerged. Despite her power and status, she was not a figure of intimidation in her own home. The twins experienced her warmth, guidance, and humor on a daily basis. Seeing her in the context of family life made her approachable and human, yet when the circumstances required, she could seamlessly shift into a commanding presence, demonstrating authority in a way that was both effective and respected. The delicate balance between mother and official would soon be put to the test, as the incident grew into something much larger than anyone could have imagined. She had also witnessed the effects of public perception on families countless times throughout her career. Understanding how easily assumptions could escalate, she knew that her children's safety, dignity, and reputation needed careful protection. It was one thing to handle policy or governance, but quite another to protect the innocence of her children in a situation sparked by misunderstanding. She had prepared herself mentally for moments like these, knowing that quick thinking, calm communication, and authority could make all the difference. As she stepped into the unfolding situation, the neighborhood would come to realize that this was not an ordinary family, and this was not an ordinary mother. Her presence immediately commanded attention and respect. The curiosity, tension, and whispers that had filled the streets began to shift as people caught sight of her. Her reputation, previously unknown to some, now became clear in the eyes of everyone, and the dynamic of the story transformed instantly. Her background, achievements, and quiet strength served as a reminder that appearances could be deceiving, that beneath ordinary scenes, children playing, neighbors watching, and phone calls being made, there could be layers of authority, influence, and experience unseen at first glance. She was a living example of how power, responsibility, and family could intersect in unexpected ways, and how a mother's presence could completely change the course of events. By the time she approached the yard, calm and composed, the neighborhood was ready to witness the full extent of her influence. She did not raise her voice or demand attention, yet in every step, glance, and word, she projected a confidence that subtly reminded everyone that this was her family, her children, and her authority now quietly overseeing the situation. In that moment, the entire story began to take on a new dimension, transforming from a simple neighborhood misunderstanding into a tale of influence, respect, and the unexpected power that one person could bring to a community. From the moment the officers arrived, the twins found themselves at the center of a situation they didn't understand. Their world, usually filled with play, laughter, and the comfort of family, had suddenly shifted into one of confusion and tension. They stood side by side, glancing at the flashing police lights and the neighbors who had gathered, their small hands occasionally brushing against each other for reassurance. Neither had done anything wrong, yet the weight of the moment pressed down on them in ways they had never experienced before. One of the twins whispered to the other, "Why are they here?" The words were simple, innocent, yet carried the uncertainty of a child trying to make sense of events beyond their control. The other twin shrugged, equally puzzled. Their minds were racing to understand why a friendly neighbor, someone they had seen waving before, had called the police. They had no concept of influence, authority, or power. They only knew that the ordinary safety of their neighborhood had suddenly felt uncertain. Inside, both twins were trying to remain calm, but a mixture of fear, curiosity, and embarrassment swirled within them. They had always been taught to be polite, to respect others, and to communicate honestly, and these lessons now guided their reactions. Their answers to the officers' questions were measured, straightforward, and truthful. Yet the innocence of their explanations contrasted sharply with the seriousness with which the adults treated the situation, highlighting the stark gap between perception and reality. The twins also felt a sense of frustration. Though they didn't fully understand it, they were used to being seen and understood within their family, yet suddenly, strangers had made assumptions about them. They wanted to be seen for who they were, children who played, laughed, and went about their everyday lives, not as suspects or as objects of suspicion. This internal conflict added another layer to their experience, making the moment more complex than a typical childhood misunderstanding. As they glanced toward their mother, the twins felt a wave of relief. Her presence was grounding, a quiet reassurance that everything would be okay. Even from a distance, she projected calm authority, and her demeanor reminded them that the situation, however confusing, was under control. Her eyes met theirs, and with a subtle nod, she communicated that there was nothing to fear. The twins drew strength from her confidence, feeling a sense of security amid the growing chaos. The personal perspective of the twins also included awareness of the crowd of neighbors. Some faces looked concerned, some curious, and a few reflected judgment. Even at their young age, they could sense that assumptions had been made, and that their presence had somehow triggered these reactions. They did not understand the complexities of racial bias, neighborhood vigilance, or public perception, but they did feel the weight of attention, the tension in the air, and the mix of curiosity and judgment surrounding them. Despite the confusion, the twins maintained their composure, a reflection of the values instilled by their mother. They spoke politely to the officers, responded honestly, and remained calm even when whispered conversations about them could be overheard. Their innocence and sincerity contrasted sharply with the assumptions made about them, emphasizing how easily misunderstandings could escalate when viewed through the lens of fear or prejudice. In their personal perspective, there was also a subtle awareness of power and authority. Though they could not name it, the presence of their mother, the respect she commanded, and the authority she represented was deeply reassuring. It reminded them that while others may misjudge, misunderstandings could be corrected, and fairness could prevail. This awareness, even if unconscious, gave them confidence to remain calm, speak truthfully, and navigate a situation that was entirely unfamiliar and intimidating. By the end of this initial confrontation, the twins' perspective reflected a mixture of relief, bewilderment, and a quiet sense of empowerment. They had faced a confusing and tense situation without panicking, and they had been supported by the steady presence of their mother. Their personal experience highlighted the importance of guidance, trust, and calmness in the face of misunderstanding, a lesson they would carry with them long after the events of that morning. In the eyes of the twins, what had started as a playful morning in their yard had become a life lesson, a moment that would shape their understanding of people, perceptions, and authority. They had learned, in ways too subtle for adults to always notice, that even in the face of fear, support, and truth could make a difference. That the presence of someone they trusted could turn a tense situation into one that was manageable and instructive, and that sometimes, life's most challenging moments arrived when least expected, teaching lessons that would last a lifetime. As the tension in the neighborhood reached its peak, the twins' mother finally stepped forward, her calm presence immediately changing the energy of the scene. The neighbors, who had been whispering and speculating, paused to watch, sensing that someone with authority had arrived. Even the officers, who had been questioning the children, took a subtle step back, recognizing the quiet confidence that radiated from her. She did not raise her voice or display anger, yet in every gesture and movement it was clear that she was in control, and that the situation would soon be clarified. Walking toward the twins, she gently placed a hand on each of their shoulders, offering reassurance and grounding them in the midst of the chaos. Her eyes scanned the gathering crowd, and she spoke in a calm but firm voice, addressing both the neighbors and the officers. Her words carried authority without intimidation, as she explained the reality of the situation, that her children were simply playing outside. Unaware that anyone could perceive their presence as suspicious, she emphasized the importance of understanding, communication, and avoiding assumptions, reminding everyone that a simple action could easily be misinterpreted. The neighbor who had called the police now found themselves facing the reality of the situation. Their initial concern had been genuine, yet the presence and explanation of the twins' mother brought a mix of embarrassment and relief. They realized that their assumptions had escalated the situation unnecessarily, and they struggled to find the right words to apologize. The twins' mother, however, responded with grace, acknowledging their concern while gently explaining why a conversation or observation might have been a better first step than a phone call. This approach diffused tension and fostered understanding rather than conflict. As the conversation continued, the community began to absorb the lesson that had unfolded before them. Neighbors who had been quick to judge or speculate started to reconsider their assumptions. The twins, still holding on to their mother's hands, listened quietly, beginning to understand that adults could misinterpret situations, but also that calm explanation and patience could correct misunderstandings. They witnessed firsthand how truth, combined with authority and composure, could transform a tense moment into an opportunity for learning and reflection. The officers, too, responded with professionalism, taking note of the clarification while maintaining a respectful distance. They had been prepared for a scenario that seemed unusual or potentially problematic, yet the reality was far simpler, a case of innocent children being misperceived by a concerned neighbor. They observed the mother's skillful handling of the situation and quietly acknowledged the importance of communication and context in resolving misunderstandings. Their presence remained necessary, but the tension had diminished significantly. As the explanation continued, the neighbor who had made the call finally voiced a heartfelt apology. Their words were sincere, expressing regret for the unnecessary escalation and acknowledging the innocence of the twins. The twins' mother accepted the apology gracefully, reinforcing a lesson in empathy and understanding for everyone present. It was a moment of reconciliation that highlighted the power of calm dialogue, patience, and awareness, transforming what could have been a lasting conflict into a teachable moment for the entire community. Slowly, the gathered crowd began to disperse, yet the impact of the resolution lingered. Conversations shifted from speculation to reflection, as people considered the lessons learned from the morning's events. The twins, now feeling safe and reassured, returned to their play, their laughter gradually filling the air once more. The neighborhood had returned to a sense of normalcy, but with a new understanding of perception, authority, and the importance of approaching situations with patience and care. By the end of the confrontation, it was clear that the twins' mother had not only resolved the immediate tension but had also subtly reshaped the community's understanding. Her calm intervention had prevented further escalation, protected her children's innocence, and taught neighbors a valuable lesson about assumptions and empathy. What began as a potentially divisive incident had been transformed into a moment of connection and education, leaving everyone involved with a renewed sense of awareness and respect. As she walked back to her home with the twins, hand in hand, the mother carried herself with quiet satisfaction, knowing that the morning's events had been handled thoughtfully and effectively. The neighborhood would remember this day for weeks, not just for the misunderstanding, but for the way it had been resolved, demonstrating the power of calm authority, clear communication, and compassion in the face of confusion and tension. The resolution had turned a moment of fear and misperception into a story of understanding and growth. The incident that began as a simple phone call from a neighbor quickly grew into a story that extended far beyond the quiet streets of the community. As news of the misunderstanding spread, people began to reflect on the larger lessons it carried. Conversations shifted from the immediate situation to the bigger picture, exploring issues of perception, assumptions, and how quickly misunderstandings can escalate. The event revealed that what might seem like a small, local occurrence could have ripple effects reaching the entire community. Neighbors discussed how assumptions about race, behavior, and appearances had influenced the call to the authorities. Many began to question their own biases, recognizing that even well-meaning caution could lead to unintended consequences. The story sparked debates about how communities perceive each other, and how fear, curiosity, or misunderstanding can sometimes overshadow empathy and observation. People started to understand that assumptions, even when not malicious, have the power to create tension and conflict where none existed. At the same time, the incident highlighted the influence of power and leadership within a community. The twins' mother, as a respected county official, had transformed the situation with her calm authority and clear communication. Her ability to resolve the misunderstanding demonstrated the importance of leadership grounded in fairness, patience, and insight. The event reminded everyone that positions of influence carry responsibility not only in governance but also in guiding communities through moments of uncertainty. Social media amplified the story further, drawing attention from beyond the neighborhood. Videos and accounts of the incident were shared widely, sparking discussion online about racial bias, community vigilance, and parental guidance. Many viewers expressed surprise at how quickly an innocent situation had escalated, and how the mother's intervention had turned it into a lesson for all. The story became a reference point for conversations about how society interprets actions and appearances, and how context is often missing in moments of judgment. Educators and community leaders began to use the incident as a teaching moment, highlighting the importance of communication, observation, and empathy. Workshops and discussions emerged around recognizing assumptions and addressing conflicts calmly. the event also encouraged parents to talk to their children about navigating misunderstandings, standing up for themselves, and trusting the guidance of responsible adults. The twins' experience became an example of how young people can remain composed and confident when faced with confusing situations. The broader implications also touched law enforcement, as officers reflected on how small calls can escalate into larger, more visible incidents. Training discussions emphasized the importance of context, observation, and patience in responding to situations that might initially appear suspicious. The incident reinforced that understanding the full story before taking action is crucial, and that communication can prevent unnecessary stress for children and families. In a larger societal sense, the story reminded communities everywhere that assumptions, fear, and a lack of awareness can have far-reaching effects. What started as a single phone call became a catalyst for reflection on personal biases, community interactions, and the role of authority in everyday life. People realized that a simple act, such as observing before judging or speaking before acting, could prevent conflict and misunderstanding, and that lessons about empathy and patience are essential in maintaining harmony. Even weeks after the event, the conversation continued, both in the neighborhood and online. The twins' innocence, the mother's authority, and the neighbor's intentions became intertwined in a story that taught multiple generations about perspective, understanding, and responsibility. The broader implications extended beyond the incident itself, creating a ripple effect of awareness and prompting discussions about how to approach life with caution, kindness, and clarity. In the end, the story revealed that every community has moments that test perception, judgment, and understanding, yet through calm leadership, patience, and reflection, even misunderstandings can transform into lessons that unite rather than divide. The incident became more than just a local story. It became a lesson in empathy, awareness, and the power of measured action, reminding everyone that small events often carry big implications, and that perspective, trust, and communication can change the outcome entirely. As the day finally drew to a close, the neighborhood began to settle back into its usual rhythm, yet the events of the morning left a lasting impression on everyone involved. What had started as a simple act, a neighbor's phone call out of caution, had transformed into a story that touched on perception, authority, and the power of empathy. The twins, their mother, and the community had all been part of an experience that carried lessons far beyond the immediate moment. The twins returned to their daily routines, carrying with them a newfound understanding of the world around them. Though they were still young, the experience had taught them about perception, awareness, and resilience. They realized that sometimes, people act out of caution or fear, and that misunderstandings could arise even when no one had bad intentions. Their mother's guidance throughout the incident had reinforced the importance of staying calm, speaking the truth, and trusting those who act with authority and care. For the white neighbor, the experience was humbling. A single call had unintentionally caused stress, scrutiny, and attention that none of the participants had expected, yet it also became a moment of reflection and growth. They came to understand the importance of observing carefully, seeking clarity, and avoiding assumptions. Even well-intentioned actions could have consequences, and this lesson would remain with them long after the incident faded from immediate memory. The broader neighborhood also took away valuable insights. Conversations that had started with whispers and speculation evolved into discussions about empathy, understanding, and the dynamics of community life. People reflected on how assumptions, often unconscious, could lead to unnecessary conflict, and how simple communication could prevent escalation. Neighbors began to see that curiosity and caution should be balanced with patience, awareness, and an understanding of context. The mother's role remained a central lesson for everyone involved. Her calm authority, measured responses, and thoughtful intervention demonstrated how leadership, even in everyday situations, could transform potential conflict into learning. She had shown that power is not about intimidation but about guiding others with clarity, fairness, and empathy. Her example left a lasting impression on the community, reminding everyone that respect, knowledge, and patience can change outcomes in ways that anger or fear never can. Social media continued to carry the story beyond the neighborhood, sparking dialogue about race, perception, and the responsibilities of both parents and community members. People everywhere reflected on how minor events can highlight larger societal issues, from implicit bias to the importance of communication and leadership. The twins' experience became a teaching example, demonstrating that even children can remain composed and truthful under pressure, and that adults can learn from their example. Ultimately, the incident served as a reminder that ordinary moments often carry extraordinary lessons. A seemingly small decision, a phone call, a cautious observation, can ripple outward, affecting multiple lives in unexpected ways, yet when guided by understanding, calm communication, and empathy, these moments can transform into experiences that teach, unite, and strengthen communities. The twins, their mother, and even the neighbor had all played a role in creating a story that was far bigger than the sum of its parts. As evening fell and the streets returned to calm, the community reflected on what they had witnessed. They realized that assumptions, fear, and misunderstandings are natural human reactions, but they can be addressed and corrected through dialogue, observation, and guidance. The twins continued to play safely in their yard, watched over by their mother, who had turned a tense moment into an opportunity for understanding and growth. Their laughter now carried a sense of triumph, resilience, and a reminder of the importance of trust and clarity. In the end, the story became a powerful lesson for everyone involved, from the children and their family to the neighbors and beyond. It illustrated how patience, awareness, and empathy could prevent conflict, resolve misunderstandings, and strengthen relationships. The twins' mother had shown that leadership and care go hand in hand, and that even the most challenging moments can be turned into opportunities for learning. The incident would be remembered not for the fear or confusion it caused, but for the wisdom, calm, and humanity that transformed it into a story with lasting value. The day concluded with a quiet sense of reflection, a reminder that every community, every family, and every individual can learn from the smallest actions, that awareness, understanding, and guidance can create harmony where tension once existed, and that even in moments of fear or misunderstanding, empathy and truth have the power to heal, connect, and teach lessons that last a lifetime.